All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get started. Please take conversations outside or end them. All right, we'll call to order our agenda meeting of April 15th. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Baker? Here. Commissioner Beck? Here. Commissioner Chauncey?
Here.
Commissioner Eversole?
Here.
Commissioner Graham?
Here.
Commissioner Helton? Here. Commissioner Dr. Highlander?
Here.
Dr. Mackey?
Here.
Commissioner Sharp?
Here.
Commissioner Shipley? Chairman Smith?
Here. Thank you. We will be looking at the minutes for April 15th regular meeting and the April 15th agenda meeting, as well as we expect to have 3 reports to enter into the record. So let's go on down to resolutions. The agenda, Madam Clerk, please read 526-1.
Resolution 526-1, a resolution to approve and accept applications for notary public positions, the bonds and oaths of notaries previously elected, the oaths of deputy sheriffs, and the oath of deputy county trustee.
Now let's keep moving. 526-2, please.
Resolution 526-2, a resolution confirming the reappointment by the county mayor of Gene Tuggle to serve as an alternate member of the Hamilton County Beer Board as may be needed, with a term expiring December 1st, 2028.
All right, keep on.
Resolution 526-3, a resolution to provide additional compensation to the clerk and master and juvenile court clerk in the amount of 10% of the base compensation paid to certain constitutional officers as defined by Tennessee state law as general officers.
All right. Ms. Miller?
I work as your clerk and master and have since 2014, and I am from the city of Ridgeside. I'm here tonight before you because I'm retiring next month. I didn't want another term. And the chancellors are going to hire my law clerk, my staff attorney, Rachel Kapperman, who's been with me since 2016. I hired her right out of UT Law School to come and be my one-year law clerk. She loved county service, public service so much, she's with me, and now she's going to take over my job. What I'm here for you tonight briefly is under the statute 824-102, which allows, with the commission's discretion, to allow 10% more to be held back from our fees to pay an additional amount to her in salary for working for more than one court. For all these years I've been there and that she's been there, we have been working for 2 courts. But in 14, when I got here, Chancellor Atherton and I seeing the need for there to be mediations for our indigent citizens who either don't have attorneys or are with legal aid or can't pay for a mediation. We've been doing those mediations for those individuals, for Chancellors Fleener, Atherton, for the 4 circuit judges, the new circuit judges, the ones that were there when I got there, as well as I have done juvenile mediations for Judge Rob Filial. It's very rewarding work, but it is excruciating. There are many mediations I've done for complicated matters for people who are very poor but have complicated matters. I've done them sometimes over 3 days, sometimes very late at night. The real problem is the judges' dockets are packed with cases that they can't find time to hear, or that they, quite frankly, maybe don't want to hear. And so we fill that gap. There are other mediation programs that have started up after this one to help with the orders of protection, which are very difficult and clog up the judges' dockets. Down in Sessions Court, now Judge Alex McVeigh started the docket for people who are being evicted from their homes. So mediation has grown into a huge, huge issue. Maybe the legislature will give all courts, like circuit and chancery, their own paid mediator for all those courts, but right now they don't. And either for a good thing or just inadvertently, Chancery Court took this on, and it's fallen upon the clerk and master and now my successor to do these. One last thing. There is a local rule which has also caused this backlog in cases that need to be mediated. There's a local rule in the Hamilton County local rules that supplement the rules of civil procedure, which provides all cases in domestic relations must be mediated before a trial can be had. So you can see if you've got indigent parties or people represented by legal aid, you can't get to a mediation because you can't pay another lawyer $300 an hour or $400 an hour to do mediations. But I would respectfully ask you can, it's not for me, it's for my successor, Rachel Kapperman. Are there any questions, gentlemen?
Commissioner Mackey?
Did I hear you say that the judges, there's cases they don't want to hear,
There are some, yes, sir.
and it gets kicked over to the clerk and master?
It can, but I am, of course, I'm willing to help. I also, of course, in my role as clerk and master for Chancellor Fleener and Chancellor Atherton, they send me what's called an order of reference, where I can hear a part of a case, such as an accounting, or I can hear the whole case and make decisions on children and money and all kinds of things. But I don't mean to say they really don't want to do it. It might be that they think I have a better personality for the case, or I might have expertise because of my private practice of law. But all of our judges in this building and in the other buildings in this county are inundated with work and lots because of the economic climate. They can't afford attorneys, so they're pro se. Yeah. And as you know, a pro se litigant comes into court not knowing what to do to move the case along. But when they're in a mediation setting or with me, I can sit down and listen to them and can help them. So it does serve a purpose for the citizens of Hamilton County.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. Any
Commissioner
other
Grant?
questions, gentlemen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sirs.
Ms. Miller?
Miss Miller, hold on just one moment.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service to Hamilton County, and thank you for what all you do. I'm curious, what excess fees or what total excess fees do you bring in?
Okay. Of course, the mediations are free. Those are just part of my duties. Last year, in 2025, we had $1.5 million in excess fees, and they have been steadily growing over the years that I've been there, partly because we have such a robust tax sale. Here we go. Since I got there, and my first full year was 2025, they have steadily gone up. So last year was $1,500,000. Year before that was $1,273,000. 23 was a low year. I don't know why, but the year before that was $1,055,000. So they've been going up all along.
So, but for asking for a percentage instead of an actual amount, then that will go up every year?
It would,
if it's approved?
unless, well, it's in this body's discretion. I understand. I would assume that this body could take that away at some point if the numbers didn't look good. But they have been steady since my time in office.
Well, again, thank you for your many years of service to Hamilton County, and thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Highlander?
Thank you. I'm not sure, ma'am, if it'd be for the clerk and master or the juvenile court clerk, but I've done a little bit of research on this when I saw it was coming up.
Yes, sir.
And this has been on the books for clerks to be paid this additional stipend
Yes, sir.
if they dealt with multiple
Yes.
courts. Am I correct
Yes,
in
sir.
understanding
It's
that?
been on their books since '05.
Since '05.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea? And I think there's several other counties that are already implementing this.
They
Are there
are.
not?
Yes, sir. I checked with CTAS, and there are a number that are already doing that.
That's, so we would really be bringing these two offices up in line with most of the rest of the state.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
All right, no further lights. Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Miller.
sir.
Madam Clerk? Well, wait a minute. We get to move on to committees.
We've got Mr. Baylor.
Are we done?
Oh, Mr. Baylor, I can't go without you saying something.
Are we
into the
done?
mic.
I didn't know if you needed me to add to that. She did a fantastic job. And
We-
actually, her next clerk and master was an intern in my office way before that. So when I was elected in 2010, our county officials orientation program told us that this statute was on the books. We could go back to our local governing body to ask for that additional. And my position at that time was I hadn't done anything since I'd been elected, just was freshly elected. But since that time, we've modernized our office, we've transformed it, we've become the first fully electronic court in the state of Tennessee, according to the County Technical Assistance Services. We first to add e-filing in Hamilton County, first to second juvenile court in the whole state to do e-filing. Had several projects with the state of Tennessee for electronic billing, wage assignments, e-filing, child support petitions. And that's the basis of why I stand before you and ask to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baylor. Appreciate it. All right, no lights, no other questions on those. We'll move on to committees. Public safety, well, we'll move on in a moment, but public safety, Commissioner Beck, you'll have 5 resolutions. Building and economic development, Commissioner Shipley, you'll have 3. Public works and zoning, Commissioner Highlander, you will have 2, and we will go to those meetings as soon as I hit this gavel. Seeing no further lights.
Can we meet in here, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, and okay, so unless the chairman of any one of these committees so chooses to have these meetings at any other time, at any other day, or at any other location, we will have them immediately following this meeting. All right, we'll be adjourned until May 6th at 5 p.m. Do we need time for the sprint? We're all good? Commissioner Beck, you want to start, sir?
Yes, sir. Lee, Madam Clerk, would you read 526-4, please?
Resolution 526-4, a resolution to amend resolution number 825-9, which included an allocation of bond funds to the Dallas Bay Volunteer Fire Department for $75,000 and allow for a change in the approved use.
Lee, go ahead.
I'll take that, Commissioner.
Okay.
This is a reallocation of the bond funds already established and given out by commission. Previously, because it was done through bond funds, it required a resolution which mandated what they would spend it on. This is a change because they no longer need to spend it on the original request. They need to buy, I think it's air packs now or hoses, one of the two, but they're both there. It's an approved purchase. It's just to change what they were going to buy.
I don't see anything wrong with that. Do you? Yeah.
Commissioner Shipley?
Ms. Shipley? and,
I was asleep
Mr. Beck.
over here when this started.
Yeah,
I wasn't asleep. But
we know.
no, you're correct, Chief Roddy. And we have done this already with Mowbray.
Mhm.
I think a change. So I appreciate y'all's help on it.
No further lights.
Thank you. Excuse me. Madam Clerk, would you read 526-5, please?
Resolution 526-5, a resolution approving the purchase of annual software maintenance for Inform RMS software amounting to $187,291.66 from Central Square Technologies LLC beginning June 1st, 2026 through May 31st, 2027 for the Sheriff's Office and authorizing the county mayor to sign any contracts necessary to implement this resolution.
Any questions from the committee?
No, sir.
Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you read, Madam Clerk, 526-6, please?
Resolution 526-6, a resolution authorizing the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office to submit a joint application with the city of Chattanooga and if awarded, accept the 2025 Justice Assistance Grant through the Department of Justice and amending the Sheriff's Office capital outlay budget by $51,000.
No, sir. Oh, yes, we do.
Go ahead. No.
That's what we like.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, read 526-7, please.
Resolution 526-7, a resolution approving the purchase of 6 vehicles amounting to $273,731.70 from Two Rivers Ford, Inc. and Wilson County Motor Company for the state contract SWC 209 for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and authorizing the county mayor to sign any contracts necessary.
Any questions?
Commissioner Baker.
Committee? Commissioner Baker.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say how much I appreciate your creativity on this. This saves us from having to use our budget funds. And so just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Nope.
Madam Clerk, read 520.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Commissioner Sharp.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was slow on my trigger finger there, gentlemen. Sheriff, I'm just curious, are these replacement vehicles or are we adding to the fleet?
Not adding, their replacements.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read 526-8, please? And
Resolution 526-8, a resolution to authorize monies of $87,265.07 collected as a result of Sheriff's Office confiscated firearms from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 25 to be transferred to the sheriff's capital budget.
Sheriff, you and I have talked about this one, and I want you to give a little explanation on what you would prefer to do.
Yes, sir. Let me kind of run you through the project that we're working on. We're replacing all of our sidearms, working to do that. They're, most of them are 11 years old. To give you an example of how we're planning to approach that is there was $87,265 received from the sale of confiscated weapons and equipment in accordance with state statute. $57,645 is anticipated funding from trade-in of these weapons, for a total of $144,910. Let's see. To reach the total on those. Let's see. Okay, so it'll be replacing 195 pistols in the first phase, for a total of $104,000 for the total purchase. 25 rifles at $1,500. So the handguns will be $104,000. The rifles will be $37,500 for a total of $141,522. The funding for that would be the $87,265 from the sale of those weapons, and also anticipated funding from trade-in of $57,000, which will actually give us about $4,000 extra. That funding will be used for optics and other accessories for the weapons. And then I have a separate phase to finish us up. In addition to this request of 225 pistols at $540 a piece for a total of $121,500. $40,160 will come from our operating and capital funds, and then $80,890 anticipated funding from the trade-in of the rifles and pistols to reach that $121,500.
Sir, just one quick question. What kind of pistols are they?
Glock 40 caliber will be swapping back to 9mm.
Good.
Which will save funding on ammunition.
I like
It's a
that
better
Glock
product.
40. Any questions from the committee?
Commissioner Eversol.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I guess there was some communication came out about this funding source, and I don't understand why there's questions. There's a state statute that says this money that's for confiscated guns, if they're sold, it goes back to the sheriff's office for them to use. I guess I was kind of confused on why that would be an issue. So I don't know if that's Lee.
Well, again, the issue we have is assigning a specific revenue source, I guess, specific to spending for a department. We feel that those funds have already been allocated to the sheriff, and he's got a $72 million, $587,000 was allocated to their office to be spent in fiscal year 26. So it's our view that that $87,000 has and of course, significantly more has already been assigned to the sheriff. We simply don't like the precedent of doing this, and if the sheriff has a need to spend $87,000 more money, our approach would be for you just to amend the budget to spend those funds, because that's where it's coming from, is fund balance. We have a lot of departments all the time. In fact, I got one today, a request from a different department to use a specific revenue source specifically for that office, and we simply do not do that historically.
Is there a state statute says they can, though?
Yeah, there are state statutes that do assign that money, but again, it's been our view on a lot of revenue sources, but it's our view that, at least in this case, we allocate significantly more than $87,265 to the sheriff, so those funds have already been allocated to them.
So would you recommend that if he pulls me over for speeding, doing 65 and a 55, I say, I've been a good citizen, I paid my taxes, so I feel like I've already allocated my taxes towards speeding, which is breaking the law? Because that's what the state statute is to me, and I could be wrong, but state statute says that this is how the legislative body says in the state of Tennessee, those funds should be used. So to me, and I could be wrong, but it says if he collects from those guns, $87,000, then he gets that money for those guns, he gets it back, which is totally different than his budget.
Well, again,
Can I make a
I
point of
don't know if this
clarification?
is a debate session, but I certainly, my thought then in the future was we already budget those revenues. So they were already budgeted
Okay.
and allocated. So, my thought would be in the future, we would not budget those revenues and we would therefore have less revenue to be assigned if that's how we're going to view those. But we've never, basically our view has always been, our contention is those monies have already been allocated and spent.
Yeah, I just think it's a very fine line. We just got to be careful with because the state statute states that he does it that way. Then I think we've got to be careful and make sure that we're doing that way.
Can I clarification? One, I understand how you reference. We're not a department, we're a constitutional office. Tennessee Code annotated 3917, says the sheriff or chief of police shall sell confiscated weapons. I'm actually supposed to conduct the sale, but we use a vendor to do that, which is appropriate. Also says the proceeds from the sale shall be deposited in the county or municipal general fund and allocated solely for law enforcement purposes. I think we're very innovative, like that was said earlier, and I appreciate that and what we do to get where we need to be to provide law enforcement services in this county. I can't do what I do and deliver the level of services I do without this body and the mayor's office supporting us. 2015, same process was used by the guns I'm talking about that I'm carrying. 2017, finished the project up. This one, confiscated weapon funding was used. This one was just trade-in. So there's no precedent. We're not asking for our Chevy Tahoes to get the money on trade-in for that. The state legislature was very clear, in my opinion. If they created a statute for it, then they sent the message that that funding is to be used for law enforcement purposes, in my opinion, not commingled in county funds. I think I have an obligation as sheriff to this body to show where that funding's going, and I believe we're doing that adequately with this project.
Okay, sounds clear.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chairman. And I think that further questions could be put to the sheriff as we go along, but I think the establishment of the statute is clear to me, so thank you, Sheriff, and
Sure, we
we'll
have
vote on-
more lights. Do you want to go to
Okay,
them?
all right.
Commissioner Shipley?
Late light?
Commissioner Shipley's got it.
I'm not sure what year we did it, but we done it, say, the exact same way the sheriff's talking about, where selling the weapons went back to the police department, same way the drug fund is with the police department. They get over here. They gotta have a gun. So we're gonna get them some guns, right?
That's enough for you.
1935 Baker says, but you will need a gun and more than one bullet here.
I've got it in my left pocket.
I think I hope we can work with Sheriff Garrett on the way he wants to handle this. Thank you.
Commissioner Highlander?
Briefly, Chairman, could I ask our legal counsel for,
He's the chairman.
Chairman, may I ask a legal counsel for a comment on the state statute?
Go ahead.
What do you think, sir? Is that, it seems,
The statutes, as the sheriff said, 3917, 1317, states that the money from confiscated guns should be deposited in the general fund and then used. The statute says for law enforcement purposes.
so you think we should follow the sheriff's advice?
I think that's
Statute.
consistent with the statute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the legal opinion.
That's all I have.
Hilton?
Good.
Thank you. Lee, I just wanted to be clear. You're not saying the dollars were budgeted, spent, and then we're funding it again, are you? That's the only matter I wanted to clear up.
Actually, that is what I'm saying, is we've already budgeted those funds. We budgeted the revenues, we budgeted the expenses. And again, I don't know specifically, I don't know what funds they are using to purchase their weapons with, but yes, it would be my contention that they're getting budgeted
Well,
twice.
how can we clean up the accounting on this? And stay within state statutes and make everybody happy and satisfied?
I would say the accounting is clean and that that's included in this $72 million budget, but if that's not included in the budget, then I guess when we view their budget for the next year, we would make certain that they do not include budgeted money for weapons because that money will be funded from a separate source that will be coming when they sell them. I guess that's not how we normally do things, but
Is it possible to set up a dedicated account within the general fund that's specially numbered for this item? Just,
the answer to that is absolutely yes. My also thought is I'd probably need to set up about 100 of those.
oh, jeez. Okay, well, thank you, Lee.
Can I add one more thing, Commissioner? This was, revenue wasn't anticipated, and these guns cover several budget years. We acknowledge this body in the mayor's office has an extremely hard decision. This year's gonna be another one. I know you guys, I don't envy you, and we go out of our way, just like the vehicles that I presented today, finding ways through grants, full-time grant writer, to do this. And my staff, Ron Bernard, my chief deputy, and everybody else in my executive office, every day focuses on how we can save taxpayer dollars and provide the quality equipment to our deputies to do the job they do. This is an example of it. There is no precedent setting. The legislature was clear, in my opinion. No one anticipated this revenue till the sheriff decided to sell those guns and clean up my inventory to make room for a move that we're about to do. So there is nothing to do with those. That money was not already budgeted. Matter of fact, we're under on the money that we asked for each year. And I just acknowledge the fact that it's tough for you to make those decisions. But I trust this body and the mayor's office to fund my operations adequately. And I trust that you'll see what I'm talking about with this funding that the legislature, I believe, is very clear on. And I don't think I should be deducted $87,000 in the upcoming budget because of this either.
That's all I have.
Commissioner
Mr.
Sharp
Chairman.
has a light.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask it, just for the record, does this impact the maintenance of effort at all?
Capital.
I'd have to go back and look, but I believe no, the maintenance of effort is mainly number of employees, I believe, for the sheriff's office, but I'd have to go back and look. I believe that does not affect it.
Would you do that, please? Thank you.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
All right.
Ready? Thank you for your condolences earlier from both the commission and the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, we'll move on to Building and Economic Development. Commissioner Shipley, you've got 3 resolutions, sir.
9.
Resolution 526-9, a resolution to declare the property located at 317 Oak Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, jointly owned by Hamilton County and the Hamilton County Department of Education as surplus property and to authorize its disposal in accordance with applicable law and policy.
This recommendation come out of a committee meeting we held. The building is got many problems. And if Todd wants to weigh on this, but after hearing everything I heard with Mike Kirk also in there, the building probably needs to be sold or put more money in an old building than it's actually worth. So Todd, weigh in.
Sure, Commissioner. And of course, what this resolution is it's the ability for us to solicit a request for proposal for a potential sale. If you read the resolution, it says, will solicit qualified respondents with special consideration given to proposals that maintain the building's historical significance through development for sustainable long-term use and thoughtful integration with the surrounding community. So what in essence will happen, it'll probably take us, the last time we did this, it probably take 3 to 6 months. We'll bring a recommendation based on proposals, but we believe this has a higher and better use on the tax rolls. There are some issues. You may remember we moved employees out with some HVAC issues. There's also some ADA issues, also some compliance issues, and Mr. Mike Kirk our property manager, can mention some of that. But in essence, this is a request for proposals, and then once we get proposals in, we'll bring that back for a commission discussion and approval on a recommended potential sale. Any other questions, I'll be happy to answer. Currently, we do have some plans for where we can relocate. The other thing I think we mentioned in the meeting the other day is we have looked a lot at our space allocation and where individuals can go, and we do plan to have space for the people that were impacted by this move.
Commissioner Highlander?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. May I ask Mr. Lehman a question? May I ask? Well, we jointly own with the Department of Education. If we sell it, do we split the money, or what's the? I'm not sure. I know when I was on the school board, there were certain different contracts on joint properties. Some reverted, some stayed the same, some went one way and the other. And I'm not sure what the nature of this one is. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir. The plan is to split the funds. We had it appraised at 4.1. That'll be the minimum bid or minimum proposal that we'll accept from proposals. But no, the plan is to split that with the school
To
board.
split. Okay. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just mentioned that you're going to relocate people. I thought they were already relocated over to Gateway.
They currently are, and they'll be at Gateway until we move forward with the renovation there. But yes, they'll be at Gateway for the short term. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I don't know when, I don't have all of the background on this resolution pulled, but I know that we've hired an architecture firm to study and provide us whatever we needed to renovate this building. Has that been executed?
Yes, sir. We got some preliminary phase 0 recommendations, which we've been evaluating depending on what potentially would happen. But yeah, we have that report.
So,
They recommended minimum improvements around 5.5 million, which if we did some additional level of finishes up to 7.5 or 8.5 million. But the 5.5 was the recommended, which were both ADA compliance, HVAC, and some other masonry. There are some masonry concerns since that's an older building, so that was all in their report.
I know that there's in all likelihood a higher and better use for that particular space. I don't know what it is. I have some ideas. But I know we've also been growing government and looking for space for people. What is it? Where are these people going to move?
I'm not sure we're growing government necessarily relative to our roofs and our facilities.
Well, and
necessarily.
employees. We've needed
Yes, sir.
additional office space.
Well, we and I'll let Mr. Kirk jump in, but there are certain functions that are currently at Gateway that will fit based on the footprint and the available space at the McDaniel building. There's also the EMS or EMA that we have some potentials even at Cromwell's, which is where we're located, and we have some of their equipment. And I'll let Mr. Kirk jump in with some other things, but we do have plans to relocate those individuals to space that can be better utilized across our footprints.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner, I would just add, property management has been looking at all of our facilities for space utilization and maintenance issues, those kind of things. We've got a number of buildings, quite frankly, that offices are much larger than traditional government office spaces are laid out and spec'd out to be. So we would recommend, as a part of the consideration here, would be right-sizing some spaces, taking advantage of some space, again, that we got at Cromwell, we've got at McDaniel, we've got at several other places that we could right-size and take on quite a few more people.
Okay. I couldn't help but notice that the sheriff mentioned just a moment ago, he knows we're all looking for creative ways to find revenue to fund our budget coming into a tight budget year. Is there an intention for the funds from the sale of this property? Do we have plans for that type of fund? Do we have any idea what type of price we're looking at this piece of property? What's it appraised for currently? 4.1. 4.1?
That's right.
I didn't get that. Has that been earmarked internally for a purpose?
Yeah, I can't speak to this. Yeah, I can't speak to the school board, but we haven't earmarked it in Public Works or Property Management.
Okay. So where would the funds go after the sale of this property?
Going to the general fund, right?
The general fund?
Lee, is that correct?
There are a couple of options. We could put them in the general fund. It could go into a capital projects fund.
Okay, I'm going to have some more questions on this probably when we meet again, if we can't maybe meet up between now and the next meeting. I just got my wheels turning. Okay, thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it appraised for $4.1 million, and that would be our minimum bid on the building, correct?
Correct.
What if it doesn't bring that?
Well, the way the RFP process works, number one, we won't accept proposals less than 4.1. That's a minimum proposal. If somebody submits that, I mean, we don't have to take it. I mean, it's like any request for proposal. I'm not sure what the higher and best use on the private market necessarily. I mean, I've heard some rumors about what possibly would happen. We would hope we would get more than 4.1. That whatever a proposal, a legitimate proposal would come back to this county commission to approve.
Well, that's why I asked Todd. I mean, I knew the answer to the question, but I asked that because we don't have to sell it. If it comes back and it doesn't bring what we want it to bring, we don't have to sell
That's
it.
absolutely correct. What you're authorizing us to do is solicit
We're
a
putting our toe in
request
the
for a
water,
proposal.
right? We're putting our toe in the
That's
water
right.
to see what it's going to do.
And it may come back less than 4.1. It may come back double. I mean, I don't know. The private sector will drive
Determined.
some of that.
Right. Thank you.
Here we go.
Resolution 526-10, a resolution to declare the property located at 100 Cherokee Boulevard, Chattanooga, Tennessee, owned by Hamilton County as surplus property, and to authorize its disposal in accordance with applicable law and policy.
Pretty much same setup as last. The building has lots of problems. We'll look at the cost versus possibly selling it. That's what the discussion's been on that with you guys. Think the mayor today cleared up a lot of it with additional space over here. But I will let you speak to it, Todd, but what I heard in the meeting, what committee heard, the amount of money to repair this building, the light bills county is paying on this building, substantial amount of money to the taxpayers of Mammoth County. So go ahead, Todd.
Sure, this one may be a little bit nuanced, but the same, we're recommending you to allow us to solicit an RFP to see what a potential higher and better use for the BDC at 100 Cherokee Boulevard. And let me give you a little bit of context relative to this. I shared this, I think, with some of the tenants. When we spent the last $5 million in this facility, which was a project we did in 2009 and completed in 2011, I was part of a group prior to that looked for a better option so we could liquidate that building on that property because of some of the challenges, both in just operational, just in space allocation and parking. The reason why we moved forward with the project in 2009 and completed in 2011 is because there was not a better option. I think what I tried to convey, and I'll convey to you, and I think the mayor laid out today, we do have a what we would agree would be a better, more efficient pathway for incubation space with a connection with additional partners and additional and an additional education component. The challenges with this building are, and they've been talked about for many, many years, is just what it was initially built for and how you appropriately operate and maintain it. A little bit more history. We have a very unique agreement with the chamber. They operated and maintained it in Seoul. And so we were not even in the building. If you remember, we renegotiated a lease about 18 months ago. The sole purpose of that lease was for us to move back into the building. We added a footprint in the building and then to understand kind of the maintenance issues and the cost related to that. We don't operate it, they operate it, which is a little bit of a unique situation, just unique relative to we're in charge of maintenance, but they're operating it day to day. We have a very good relationship with them. I will tell you that as we looked at a project, and y'all may remember, we did allocate some funds for a project, and we were really, I think, in the same situation we were in 2009, trying to evaluate the really value of that property to the private sector, but also having the ability to still do and make a commitment, which you've heard the mayor make today, to the small business and the entrepreneurial. But each of those I'll only say this, that by moving in to try to do a little bit of work suite to suite, there are many other concerns relative to fire sprinkler. We have some envelope issues. Most of the space is being operated differently based on the exterior envelope. So as we looked at going space to space just with an HVAC in the manufacturing, which was the current project we were talking about, evaluated all types of other issues relative to just issues with operation and maintenance of that facility, including a roof that I'm not sure has been replaced that would need replacement. There's been brick facade issues for long periods of time. Fire sprinkler we have concerns about, and just the overall space and cost to actually maintain and run that building. And to the commissioner's point, I think collectively the chamber does pay half the utilities. We pay about $185,000 a year on utilities. We pay another 50% another $50,000 just on preventive maintenance. And we spent about $400,000 over the last year just in trying to service HVAC units. And so it is a cost. And I think our only point relative to trying to get properties back in the open market that are currently a cost and efficiency issues for us. That's our recommendation. Same process, RFP. We'll solicit the proposals in the private market and bring whatever that recommendation back to this commission.
Commissioner Highlander?
Thanks, sir. Briefly, I'm not sure if this speaks for Mr. Kirk or Mr. Lehman. Or maybe even the mayor, but mayor gave a great presentation. I'm wondering, the way I understand this, the current tenants would have a full year to maintain what they are. Is that correct?
Yeah, and if you want me or Chief Roddy.
Either, whoever,
we-
Chief Roddy, whoever.
Yeah, we went ahead over there to make sure they understood and communicated to the tenants. And so we are very mindful of that. We had a meeting this morning. I'll let Chief Roddy talk with the
Okay.
chamber. I think we've got some really, we've got, I think, a favorable plan to protect the existing tenants that are currently in the BDC, which I know is a huge concern.
Okay,
Yes,
Chief.
Commissioner. We did have a meeting this morning, myself, Chief of Staff McVeigh, Todd, Charles, that's in the back of the room, has been gracious enough to join us to go over exactly what would be some of the steps and considerations moving forward. It was, in my opinion, a very productive meeting. We did move into some points that we still need to confirm up, but it was a lot of the sentiment that was brought to us, not only from the chamber, it was brought to us by conversations in our own office of what does the future look like for the tenants of the BDC and the incubator specifically. One of those items that we're looking at, if you've heard in the conversations here, is the concern from the county over the facilities and the facilities maintenance moving forward. I do have, and I've expressed this in meetings, so I will express it here, very strong concerns over retaining that building under county oversight and control for repair and maintenance. And we have a major systems crash relative to a roof, HVAC, and so forth. And we're talking about millions of dollars in repair costs that transfer directly into the county. So the longer the building is retained, in my opinion, the greater the odds that we're going to face a pretty sizable cost on the county to keep that building up and running. So some of the items that we discussed with Charles this morning was, is there a way to transfer some of that back to the chamber relative to some of the facilities maintenance costs so the risk is lowered on the county? That was met favorably. So that's one of the points that we've discussed and look forward to confirming as we go forward. So we are taking overall county taxpayers into consideration when we talk about one single building. I know that seems small, but it's big to others, and that's what we're working through in the conversation. Relative to your question about, are we talking about a year? That year is very much a conservative minimum. We're talking about an RFP that hasn't even been built yet. These can take months to build because of the considerations that we would have to put into it. Some of the items in the RFP can contain certain restrictions or requirements on the RFP proposal from the potential buyer. It could be things as such as buying out leases that have not terminated. An agreement between us and the tenants being that we're the landlord, or excuse me, the owner, Chamber of Commerce being the landlord, for lack of a better term. Once that 3-year lease for many of the occupants of the BDC, from what we understand, that their 3-year lease is coming up, we could switch to a month to month. So this is not an eviction notice at 1 year. This is the 1 year is the minimum that we would even be looking at something, because we still have an entire RFP to build. Then we have the post time, then we have the review time. We have to come back in conversation in committee with commission, and then overall commission approval of steps going forward on the acceptance of a singular RFP. That could potentially get us all the way to the year, and you're looking at another year before engineering, architectural, and construction can be designed from whomever may or may not purchase the building. So that 12-month, I think, is a very conservative idea of how long, or excuse me, how quickly this could proceed. And we also have grant considerations on when those come in, because those are part of the Franklin Roberts future. So there's more than one component and more than one gear that has to fall in place before anyone would be asked to leave the incubator. All that being said, some of the items that we talked this morning and have confirmed in email have to do with how do we work through the leases? How do we maintain language in the RFP that provides protections and an extension within occupancy for the current tenants? And then other items, and so I'm not just speaking from memory. We could get into future buyer to assume existing leases, allow tenants to remain under a leaseback agreement. Some individuals, we also understand that because of the specific manufacturing methodology and footprint that they use inside the incubator makes their needs very nuanced relative to finding another space to go to. In conversations this morning between us and the chamber, we both agreed that we would both play a partnership role in figuring out where they land. And if for some reason we couldn't find them a space, then we could potentially work to subsidize the delta between what their current lease payment is and what they would have to get into a new space, so that it didn't endanger their business. This is as creative as we're trying to get to make sure that we're supporting the incubator mission to support the businesses that are trying to grow in there, while still being responsible to the risks that are involved with retention of the building and overall taxpayer concerns, because we have to figure out what we're going to do with this building, and long-term retention of it, in my opinion, is not what we need to do. So I don't know how more plainly I can state that, Commissioner, but this is not everybody gets out in 12 months. That was never the plan of the project for this. It is a collaborative conversation. Chief of Staff McVeigh has come up and communicated as well that we will be doing some listening and conversation sessions with the tenants within the incubator so we can hear the concerns. We want to get into the conversations. We will also be conducting a tenant audit, which what that's going to do is it's going to help us better understand the current occupants so far as square footage, size, number of employees, HVAC considerations, environmental impacts. What do they need and are using in their space? So in the event they could potentially move into the Franklin Roberts, or do we need to find another space? We have a better idea from a needs assessment by their own assessments, not us doing it, but we're doing it collaboratively so we can figure out what they need and how we can help them find it, sir.
Thank you for working with them and collaborating. I appreciate that very much. And then giving them a reasonable time. Just curiously, what is the footage available at the Gateway Building in Franklin Roberts? And I know it's a huge footprint there, but what's the available footprint at the Gateway? Ballpark. Doesn't have to be exact.
I believe, I'm hearing, I think that's correct. I got some documents from about 45,000 square feet, but do understand the second floor, which will be, I believe, the pathway as you move up will have some collaborative space that I think can be used, if not during the same time during the school, after school,
hours,
and
yeah.
that could potentially make up for some of that difference in space. But about 45,000 of leasable space.
Well, thank you all for trying to work with the leasees. Thank you so much.
Let me only mention one other thing that I failed to mention, and we had this conversation this morning with the chamber, so we're committed to this. The challenge is just keeping it running for the next year or two to help run out their lease, and we've made a commitment to make sure we can do that. I will tell you, even moving forward with a project, even if we go, like I told you before, which it was not something we recommended space by space to do compliance HVAC, that would have had a displacement impact to the current to the current tenants, which it did in the 2009, 2010. So I just want to make sure everybody's kind of aware of that we are pushing that off to try to get them through their lease terms. But if we were to try to do something in those spaces from a maintenance project perspective, there would be an impact.
There are a few more. Commissioner Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Shipley, Chairman, Commissioner. Like anything, communication's key in any business. I don't think we all done it that well. That we are where we are, so we got to figure it out. And I've got a lot of questions. Conceptually, I like the idea, but how are we going from 175,000 to 45,000? And how do we take somebody who's doing military stuff and doing it in a school? Just all kinds of questions that we should have kind of had more facts on the table before we started pulling some levers. But it is what it is, and so we got to figure it out together. How old is the BDC?
96 years old.
96 years old. And I guess my question would be for Charles, how long do tenants stay? I know there's 1 year, you do it in 1 year increments, some are 3 years. Are there some that have been there 10 years? Does it become home or?
We do have tenants that want to nest, would be my description.
Yeah.
The way the program is structured is when clients pitch to get in. So it's a competitive process to be able to get into the program. We use our ecosystem partners around the table that participate in that process. they, if they're accepted in, we give them a 3-year window where they're allowed to come in. And then from
Three
there.
1-year windows, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I'll come back to that. From there, they're able to pitch for typically up to an additional 2 more years, so a total of 5 years. We sign with the leases that the chamber has between the chamber foundation and the clients that are in there are on 1-year windows. And frankly, that's because one of the reasons the chamber runs this and government doesn't is because we unfortunately occasionally have to evict people. And if you're the government, that can be hard to do.
I think that's what we're doing right now.
And so we have those 1-year leases, which allows us if clients are if clients aren't doing the things that they're supposed to do, because we require mentoring and coaching, we require some other things, then we can say, you haven't done what you're supposed to do, you're out. If they're not good neighbors to their fellow entrepreneurs, we can also send them out. But they come in with an understanding that they'll have at least a 3-year window. The ones we tend to let stay longer.
But no more than 5 years. There's no one been there more than 5 years.
We've had folks stay longer than 5, but the folks that we tend to let stay longer to that 5-year window are usually manufacturing. They're usually companies, and I think One Off may not be here, but they're companies like One Off Robotics, where the systems they're building, the infrastructure they need, it's complicated. And so they are typically the ones that have the most opportunity to become the next branch. And so branch may have been in, were you in 5 or were you in a little longer? 4? Okay. But if we feel like it's a rock star, then we're probably going to be more flexible.
A little more lenient.
Yes, but we haven't let anyone stay 10 years to my knowledge, at least since I've been here. The gentleman who spoke actually started with Branch Technology before founding One Off. So he was with Branch for a period of time in the incubator, and then they moved when they started One Off. They came into the incubator, different company, different group.
I was on the chamber board for years, and I never really knew what the BDC did. I think that's, I understand what somebody said, it was top 5 in the country. Had no idea. What kind of success stories, do we have to say this person came in, and had they not been there with the BDC, look at them today. Is that 1 in 10, 1 in 50? Is it 10 for 10? I don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And I think, we should know that.
And I'd like to apologize. And I said this to Claire this morning. We have not done I feel like we do an okay job telling you all about kind of some of the bigger economic development work. We have not done a good job of telling you about the successes we see from the companies that are going through this program. And I think hopefully earlier you got a little bit of a window into how impactful and kind of the incredible work that some of these companies.
I'll be honest, I don't really, because how many years has it been in operation?
The full program's been in operation for 40 years. The
40 years.
chamber's been over it for 28.
How many people have been through it?
More than 600 at this point.
And how many of those succeeded? I don't know how you define success, but
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know all 600, to be clear, because I haven't been here that long. But I would say we've seen some really incredible success stories.
Yeah.
Some are small and retail, and they stay on for a long time.
It'd be nice if we could know those.
But you see them in town, and you might not know them, right?
Yeah.
So Hot Chocolatier was actually a client here.
I had someone in the BDC.
There you go. Tidal Wave, which I think just hit an Inc. 5000 number. I think they're up to 80 employees in Chattanooga. Most people don't know them, but done really well. MRO, which rebuilds manufacturing equipment. I think there's 75 or 100 employees there. They have 2 operations, one in Chattanooga, one in, I think, Texas. So there's a host of stories that are pretty impactful, and I'm happy to document some of it just so y'all can see what that is. But yeah.
Well, I think there's, we ought to, and not you, but somebody in your staff's go out and talk to all these folks and find out all the great stories we've got. And as we create a transition plan over to what's it called? Franklin Roberts. There might be some others, cause I talked to, chairman of the chamber board, Brad Cobb, this morning, and he thought maybe like with manufacturing, we need to create other opportunities if in fact, we move forward with this plan, which I'm guessing we probably will. but to do it right, the right timing, make sure people have the right places to go that makes sense. And so this whole transition plan, I don't know there's a magic timeline. I don't know if it's 1 year, 2 years, it needs to be done right. That's what we owe them, we owe ourselves. And so, I think in the meantime, let's find out, is the BDC or the incubator, maybe, over the years, that's the way we've always done it, right? Maybe it needs to be done differently. I don't know, but it'd be cool to look at to say, we've been doing it this way, but maybe we could do it this way. And so all this stuff is a huge opportunity for us, is for our county government, for y'all to just, let's just do it right. Let's do it together. Let's do it with the chamber, with the tenants, with our staff. I mean, I get the age of our buildings, and I what'd you say it was like $5.2 million in repairs? Did I hear that number somewhere?
We think it's more than that. That's what was initially allocated.
Yeah. So, I mean, at some point you gotta, it's kind of like, I don't know, rebuilding something. You're a builder, just every now and then you got to tear down the wood and rebuild it. And so I don't know what the answers are here. I just say, okay, let's just work together, work with them, work with the chamber, and let's just do it right. I mean, I think it's a great concept. And if we're going from 175,000 to 45,000, yeah, go ahead.
Let me respond to that part, because one of the challenges of this type of sensitive announcement that we tried to make in good faith ahead of a public announcement with the tenants is that a lot of times the assumptions about intent come before information. So, for example, the 175,000 came from public comment. The leasable space, according to the appraisal from the Hastings Group, the leasable space in the building is 106,000 square feet. That would include that, frankly, very awkward large conference space area that I often speak in. You can't see around the giant columns in the building. The 45,000 square feet that was referenced in the third and fourth floor of the gateway. And this is a good question, Commissioner Baker, and some of this was laid out in that facilities meeting. Some of this is probably the best place for us to discuss it, but there have been considerations. For example, when you talk about school occupancy, the building is such an unusual facility that was constructed not all at one time. There actually has to be a firewall between the first and second floors and the third and fourth floors. And so we've always known that the use and occupancy of the third and fourth floors of the building needed to be different. So all the security protocols of the school will allow for, within reason, a lot of different activities to take place on the third and fourth floor, which are on different floor plates. The third floor is on slab. We think light manufacturing can take place there. I would argue, this building came, the old, originally a building of a lot of great entrepreneurial activity, building that became 3M, was a gift. And the county did the best it could with a massive facility. And the chamber stepped in at one point. The older the buildings got, the more the county has had to subsidize, to the tune of about $550,000 just in the last calendar year. But these are enormous square footage. It was wildly overstated, but it's about 100,000 square feet. And I think including the shared spaces, you're probably talking about a 50,000 square foot footprint. And just in our conversations over the last few years with Charles Wood and the chamber, my familiarity long before I was in office with the business incubator, it is onerously big to manage. And it is, in my opinion, seen through the tenant list. There are certain types of companies, and I think this is a conversation that we should have. It's a conversation that's been ongoing in our office. We've had it with many of y'all, is if you're going to have a public incubator, why are you having it? And it's a question that we've had with, it's a conversation we've had with Charles often. Are they companies that are scalable? That seems to be an obvious reason that you would include them, accept them into a public incubator. Are they aligned with industries that we want to be competitive in? Do they break down barriers to entrepreneurship for minority communities? Something we've tried to do a better job of as part of our announcement today. But one of the reasons I would suggest that some tenants stay longer than I think is the expectation of Public Works and of this body is a reasonable situation that the chamber, as effectively the property managers in, is they've got to fill 100,000 square feet, right?
And I would say one of the reasons that I was shocked with the first time I went into the building, just because I worked in a private incubator in the first part of my career. There were massage therapists. There are still different therapy companies. These are very dignified businesses, but they don't seem to fit the theme and the scalability that you would normally see in an incubator that would justify a public investment, right? I mean, particularly as the building has gotten older and more expensive, the taxpayers of our county are subsidizing this work, and they're subsidizing the rent, and it's quite cheap rent. And so we all have collectively, they don't necessarily, but we have a responsibility to think about the hundreds of thousands of taxpayers in the county, and then marry that with the best economic interests of our county and the extent to which this commission and the leaders of the county want to be involved in the work of being a part of a business incubator. I think it's really important work. I think we've done it pretty well. I think because of the enormity of the building, it's gotten really expensive and we've gotten a little off mission. What we proposed today was a brand new incubator that I have to believe, based on the design standards of the firm that's engaged working on the facility, would be the best incubator in the southern United States. Incredible opportunity to collaboratively with the chamber and other entrepreneurial stakeholders think about how we do this with excellence, not just how we keep doing it because they did it. I told my dad this morning, his name's on a plaque in there. And I said, man, like some things kind of run their course, don't they, right? And in this community, we replaced a 25-year-old stadium last night. And there was a lot of celebration about that. This is going to be an equal advancement on what is probably materially, a more important subject. And then lastly, it didn't seem to impress the tenants of the BDC who spoke earlier, but the opportunities, including paid employment opportunities, of pursuing what we have proposed at the old Golden Gateway, where Franklin Roberts will be, where predominantly minority students will have the opportunity to not just learn about entrepreneurship, but engage in entrepreneurial settings, is a big deal. That's the work that we're all involved in on behalf of taxpayers. I think in my conversations with you all, it's work that all 11 of you care about. So let's not lose sight of this. We've got an extremely ambitious but realistic vision in front of us, and a building that's fallen apart, and it's not exactly an architectural masterpiece. And you've heard from our team, this recommendation came to me the first few weeks I was in office. I told them, that's not going to work. You can't sell the BDC. We see the building deteriorate to the point that we felt like we had a very constructive alternative that's in the best interest of taxpayers and in the best interest of propelling entrepreneurship.
Well, I think to me, the most important thing that everyone needs to hear, in my opinion, is that we're going to work with you, with the chamber, with the tenants. We will work collectively to make it work. And I think that's how we make it work, how long it takes. Maybe your military stuff goes to a different location if it has to. We're going to work with you on it. We've got to figure out how to, if we move forward with it, which I think we probably should. It's probably time to change. But, we need to see how all this lays out. And, one of the things we do here is we partner with our executive team. So enough said by me.
Well, I spoke for a while, but there's one clarification. I want to say something that our county engineer said in a very complicated, technically accurate way, but I want to say it in layman's terms. If we were to choose, which is not my recommendation, not the recommendation of Public Works or Maintenance, but if we were to choose to try to renovate this building, every tenant would have to be displaced. Doesn't matter whether you work for the Department of War or not, everybody would have to be displaced. And that was what happened about 15 years ago when this building was renovated before. So it's one of the reasons that we got to this tough decision is there's not an easy decision on this 100-year-old monster of a building, 100,000 square feet. Hard to keep the lights on. Not to mention, there's a lot of savings here that's not been a part of this conversation. There's certainly savings in terms of utilities over there. We've got an opportunity. I know a lot of you guys, a lot of the debates in this room that are very animated are around development and growth, where appropriate. I'll tell you, there's no part of our community where growth and new development is more appropriate than at Manufacturers in Cherokee. Incredible opportunity to bring a high value investment into Commissioner Sharp's district that would hit the tax rolls in an enormous way for the county, school system, and the city of Chattanooga. And it's not on the tax rolls now. and we've made a decision collectively that the Golden Gateway is off the tax rolls, right? And so there is an opportunity here to do entrepreneurship, to do incubation, but to do it in a way that adds revenue, cuts county expenses, and modernizes our footprint in the incubator.
Commissioner Hilton?
Thank you. I don't want to cover all the ground that we've just went over, but Chief, would you say in reality, we're kicking the tires more than anything? Planning, kicking the tires, figuring out how to make it work?
Yes, sir. That was and Charles, feel free to throw whatever heavy object you want to at me if I speak incorrectly, but that was the overall tenor of our entire meeting this morning for almost an hour of how do we get to a success point for not only the tenants, but for the chamber and Hamilton County on what we do with the building. That was it, sir. Yes.
Charles, do you mind? Would you say, given time and resources, that we can come up with a creative way to transition these businesses from one facility to the other without disrupting them?
I think that, so I would say one, I think the conversation we had this morning, and I really appreciate, Claire reached out yesterday and said, hey, can we squeeze this meeting in? So I appreciate them and the level of flexibility, and kind of willingness to collaborate that they've offered. And I also should say, Chamber is incredibly excited about the vision for Franklin Roberts. I think the opportunity around both the technical education side as well as the entrepreneurship is going to be really incredible for the community. We do, I think for us, I think the team in Mayor Womp's office, they understand our first priority. We're a business organization, and the vast majority of the companies that are members of the chamber are small businesses. So it is a critical issue for us. So what we want to do as much as we can is collaborate, as Roddy said, to kind of work and figure out a path for companies. Now, some of those that are in there now, their timeline is going to be to graduate. They would be, I describe this program as we're terrible commercial landlords, because we take entrepreneurs in that have a dream and no money, and then they start making money and they do well, and then we kick them out. And no commercial landlord would ever do that. So there are some that are just naturally going to graduate out of this space in the window. I think for us, it's making sure that we can give as much flexibility to the clients that aren't. It would be incredible to be able to work through a way where we have some of those companies that can transition. They can go directly from the BDC into the.
You think it can be done?
I think it depends on how the county wants to handle the timing for the building.
Okay.
It's really all about, I think for the mayor's team, it's all about how they want to handle this. And we recognize that building is almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
And so we know the only people that know more than us about how many challenges there are in the building are the companies that are in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and just being up here close to 4 years, I've seen how slowly things come to fruition and get built out. There's a lag in time.
And that would be my concern, is just kind of how long it takes to get to the new thing. So certainly, I think you're right that it can take a while.
Well, as Commissioner Baker, our communications expert, always says, that's one area we lack in all around. I think this is productive to answering questions and hopefully set some minds at ease. But he also said, how do we measure the success of the people who y'all put out, who's in there? How do we improve the processes to make it a better place going forward?
I would say, I mean, the program I think that the mayor's thinking of in the same way that we view this program, there's a difference between price and value, right? And so there's the cost of what things cost, whether it's fixing HVAC or roofs or redoing a building, but then there's the value created by the companies that are involved in that.
Well, and that's, to some degree, I think that's a lot of the argument with what we have to put into the building and the subsidized rent. And that's something that the community's got to weigh and find the best way forward. Thanks for coming in today.
Yes, sir. The baseball game was a little more enjoyable, no offense.
Commissioner Sharp?
Thank you, Chairman. I second that. I'm gonna try real hard just to be calm and pleasant. But I've got to express that I'm really frustrated. I appreciate the acknowledgement by the mayor that this facility is in District 6 that I represent. Same district that we're closing 2 schools in, closing our business development center, attempting to at least. It would have gone a long way to have had a conversation ahead of time. All too frequently, many of us find out about these things through the newspaper or television. Certainly not in the spirit of cooperation and working together. So I have a hard time believing that the intention is to work together with all these businesses as handily as has been suggested. So I've got a lot of skepticism because up until this point, that hasn't happened. Bomb was dropped on these folks yesterday, their place of business unexpectedly. I find out about it. I had at least 7 phone calls yesterday. I don't know how many emails, text messages. Business owners in our community very concerned. And the testimony that we heard today from all of these businesses was very moving to me. And frankly, like, unless this board has more information than what I've been given up until this point, I'm really shocked that we would speak about this like in a way that would indicate, well, maybe we can approve this in 2 weeks. I don't understand that. Maybe this is just a vote up or down for 10 people on this dais. I don't know. But this is the livelihood for a lot of others in our community. They put their blood, sweat, and tears into these projects. And I get it. I started my first business out of the Business Development Center back in 2004, I think it was. It's never as successful as many of you, but but I still admire you for that. So I do have some questions, quite a few. I know, this board allocated $5.3 million to invest in the Business Development Center, I don't know, 2 years ago. I guess we didn't spend any of that money. Is that accurate? None of that money's been spent?
We've spent some of it on just HVAC maintenance repairs, but the majority of it we have not spent. Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's still there. We still have it. Was that supposed to come out of the bond fund? I mean, a bond fund, or was it? I don't know. We can get in those details later. I'm sure we'll meet and have a lot of conversation about this. Yeah. Well, okay. So I know I've heard a lot of talk and inner conversations about this, but has there been any formal analysis or feasibility study conducted before deciding to issue this RFP? And can we see that if there is?
Well, I mean, we put together some costs relative to some of the concerns we have in the building. We're not aware of all the concerns suite to suite because we haven't been in every suite, but there are significant concerns that we've at least identified, not through any evaluation, just through some of our own. Again, we started occupying the building under a new lease, so that was some of those evaluations.
Somebody's calling me over here. I think you might have the wrong number. what alternative options, renovation, phase upgrades, public-private partnerships, et cetera, have been evaluated as an alternative? Any? For this facility?
I just want to make sure I clarify the question, Commissioner. Are you talking about relative to the language that we would put in the RFP for future interest on next best use or
I'm
options?
talking about for maintaining its current use before it was determined to be obsolete.
Relative to the building?
Yes, correct. And the programming that currently resides there, along with the businesses that occupy it.
The building itself is what we focused on with the conservative 5.2 expectation in necessary facility upgrades. As far as the viability of the existing tenants, that's the conversation we're into now with us and the chamber relative to who's occupied, what they have, and everything else. So we figured we'd go ahead and start the RFP process and then the future plans on how we can accommodate what it looks like over the next 12 to 24 months.
I guess my
potentially.
point is that there's plenty of organizations, public and private, that assist with business development and incubators in our community. Have we had these conversations with any of them to bring them in on this project to determine if maybe there's a different way forward?
Our function in this is the owner of the building, not the landlord. So I would say the chamber would be the one that could provide some of the context to the questions you're asking, sir.
Okay, so the county's position is that that's not our concern? Is that what you're telling me?
I would say it's not our responsibility right now to get into feasibility studies of existing tenants. We're the owners of a building that has leased it to the chamber for their control relative to occupancy and the use thereof.
What's the term of the lease that we're currently in? Is it 7 years?
It's kind of set up at a year to year. It was a 10-year lease. We're in the second year, but I think any party can cancel that year to year.
It's not the way I remember. I remember that it was at the chamber's discretion to cancel the lease.
I think part of what you're asking is about how much and to what extent we've thought about how this can be done best. Today at the announcement, as I referenced, there were representatives of several entrepreneurial organizations in our community. We've sat down before speaking about this publicly with stakeholders in the entrepreneurial community, of which I came out of, and the leadership of CoLab thought this made a lot of sense. There's a disconnect. It's nobody's fault, but there's a disconnect between some entrepreneurial entities and in the incubator. It's not a terribly inspiring building. So, I mean, I think a lot of people who'd be watching this discussion at home might be really disappointed by the cinder block hallways and very modest setting for, and that's not even including the major systems issues that make the building way too cold at times and way too hot at other times. I mentioned the folks and the massive collective of people. You reach out to them, Commissioner, at the Chattanooga Business Elite, the folks at Brickyard who placed one of their portfolio companies, or we worked in partnership with the chamber to place a portfolio company that's done quite well at the incubator. They were there at the announcement to support this. Incubator's old buildings, especially where people have history and meetings and have some experiences. There's nostalgia there. We recognize that, but it's also a public asset. It's taxpayers own it. Every time that we got to go fix something, the major systems are all our responsibility. I think what you've heard us describe is that it's a ticking time bomb. You can ask a lot of questions. Some of them can be sort of impossible to answer. We've done an enormous amount of diligence. We've strung the building along for 3.5 more years, despite the fact that John Agan, our maintenance director, an old Navy guy, said right when I got into office, that thing absolutely should be sold.
In all fairness, I don't understand. Like, if we've been stringing along for 3 years, 2 years, why did we allocate over $5 million just 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, to invest in it? I mean, that doesn't equate, it doesn't match up to me.
Yeah.
And, I guess and I'm really curious to know, like, in all sincerity, like, the Franklin Roberts project, I want it to be a wild success, and I certainly hope that it is. I'm kind of in the position right now, it's like, I don't know why it has to be either or.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this doomsday, I don't know, prognosis of this building. And I mean, buildings get old and they fall apart if you don't invest in them. If you don't keep them up, they fall apart. So if it's falling apart, we own the building. It's our fault for allowing it to fall apart.
When I came into office, the lease had expired. I said, I'd like to see the lease of the BDC. I used to work in a private incubator. There was not even an active lease. So I don't know who was supposed to be doing that oversight, but there wasn't even an active lease. It expired long before I came into office. And I'll tell you, we did come to this body with plans to renovate the building. And you all approved a significant amount of funds that we'd identified in previous bond funds. And it was in the process of conducting further diligence that we realized there was no easy path forward. If we went and overhauled the systems, every tenant would be displaced. And it was along that process that we could not look taxpayers dead in the eye and tell them that it was in their best interest for us to pour millions and millions of dollars into a facility that we believed was onerously large, not inspiring, and we weren't going to make any real material upgrades to the building. It was not going to feel any more modern. The air would just work better. So we got to a place where we thought we should consider alternatives. But that's the question of how we came to this body asking for major funding and end up coming back today with a proposal that's much better for the future of our community.
I mean, that's subjective, but okay. I don't know that anyone that started up a business, I know for me personally, when I started my business out of the BDC, I had absolutely nothing to do with, what color the walls were, or it was about the resource. It was about the help, the assistance, the guidance, and frankly, the cost, which I think plays, if maybe one of the biggest, the most heavy weighted decision there is the cost for new startups on shoestring budgets, which is why the rents have been low. And but I think that that's something to consider. I'll go back. I'm gonna rewind just a minute because we've not talked about maybe the rent should be a little higher. Maybe we should rewire it in a way that tenants could pay their own utility bills. I mean, there's lots of things that we could look at differently instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Not the entire baby, mind you, but 68% of it, or whatever the math is, 58% of it, and having another 40 some odd thousand square feet over at the new facility. I guess my position, and I'm not set, right? But the idea is, why does it have to be either or? Why can't we do both? So I'm really curious, what are the numbers? And I've not heard a number. I've heard it's more than the 5.2 or 5.1 million for the HVAC. But what do we anticipate the renovation cost to be if we were to renovate the whole facility? Not to Taj Mahal standards, but to startup standards.
More than it's worth. I mean, it needs a new roof at 1.5. It needs a new HVAC potentially in the back. The water source heat pump in the front, we're not sure how old it is. It's got to be switched on and off. There are brick facade issues. I don't have a number, Commissioner, but I know it's a large number. And we've had a bunch of internal conversations, both with facilities maintenance, who is now engaged in the building, and our property management team. It's a 96-year-old building, and it's an extreme lift relative to the cost. And I think the only thing relative to the decision, and I only give perspective because I was part of the discussions in 2009, is the program's not going away. It's moving The building is what we're talking about. The program's going to be an improved, more modern. And so that's kind of the position we're in. It's a significant amount of county investment in that building.
I'd like to hear a number. I've got a lot more questions. I can tell that my colleagues are tired of my questions. So I won't belabor it currently. A lot of these questions could have been answered ahead of time, but I wasn't given that opportunity. So I'm bothered by that. But I'll stop for now. I have them printed up. We'll share them, and maybe we can get together and talk about this. What between now and what's a good time we can do that? We'll schedule it after this meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I just had a couple of things. Chief Roddy, thank you for your explanation of the commitment from the executive team and working with. I think you said a lot that kind of cleared a lot of muddy water for me. And when you talked about working with, looking at how we could help solve, because I think sometimes, and I'm not going to refer this to you, but I think sometimes we mow the yard when the house is on fire. And we just need to stop. And I used to use that phrase a lot in my prior world. When I think about when this group of folks wearing the orange T-shirts, you guys started coming in. I didn't know if the sheriff was bringing in convicts or what. But I applaud you for wearing your orange shirts. But when I thought a lot about, you found out about this Monday?
Yes, sir.
So my question to me is what was the conversation around the dinner table Monday night? What was the conversation to investors? What was the conversation to employees? Because we didn't know. I've gone through corporate restructures in the month of October that says, hey, we'll let you know in January where you fit in this new restructure. And it didn't make a good Christmas at all when you got kids at home. So that was my thought process, is what that conversation was going on at the dinner table that night. And so hopefully a lot of those questions were answered today. I'm sure there's still a lot of uncertainty and there may be a lot of questions. I would hope that as the executive team that we'd make ourselves completely available for a lot of questions to be answered within the next coming days and weeks as we look at this thing moving forward. But just keep in mind, plant it in the back of your mind that when we're having these conversations, what's the next conversation going to be when you're not there? Because there's a lot of people that's paying taxes through their getting paid that are paying a lot of taxes. And what are they going to still pay taxes in the future? So, but thank you again, Chief Roddy, for your explanation, your deep dive into it. But Commissioner Baker, do you have something? Okay. That's all I got.
I got my line on. Several times, Commissioner, you come in and you knew nothing about this. I sat here 2 weeks ago and called a committee meeting. Did you hear it?
I did not.
Okay, then you missed, not us. We had a committee meeting, right? Helton couldn't be here. Highlander was here. Back. So you missed it. It wasn't, we didn't tell you. 3 times you referenced that. Not our fault.
No.
Commissioner Shipley, it's still your floor, sir. Your items.
3/20.
He's the chairman of the committee, not me.
So there were several indicators that a lot of folks weren't really sure about why we were having a committee meeting on a Wednesday that we didn't have a commission meeting. So I did miss that. I did ask about it later that day, and I received no response.
Who did you ask?
I asked you via text message.
I don't remember that, but I would see.
Yeah. I said that I didn't know anything about it. You didn't respond to that. But that's not why I wanted my light on. I would just take that. But anyways, I thought of a question that I didn't ask. And I'm curious, and I don't know who to ask this to. I guess anyone in the administration. Have we sought support from partners, the city of Chattanooga, the state of Tennessee, federal grants to help assist with maintenance that could be needed for this facility?
Again, we rolled out a vision for the future today. Mayor Kelly was with us at that announcement, spoke enthusiastically about it. He's not an elected official now, but as I mentioned earlier, Senator Corker was with us and wants to play a role in the collaboration between the entrepreneurship pathway in the school and a future incubator there. This is actually a facility like the health department that used to have the city of Chattanooga's name on it, interestingly enough. It no longer does because it was removed in the same period of time as this expiration of that sales tax agreement. Let's also remember from a resource standpoint, the city of Chattanooga just opened what I think they're calling a business development resource center or something like that. I mean, we don't want to duplicate efforts. There's a new facility that the city is very proud of on MLK that I think is going to provide a lot of very important startup services. You know, I know all 11 of you enough to know that one of the things we all care about, even though y'all represent very different parts of the county, is public education. And it's easy for us to relate a lot of the county work we do, the county general government work we do back to public education and our role in facilities. And so to us, that's a very logical connection that I think we all could explain to taxpayers in our in various districts in different parts of the county. And so we have asked for collaboration on this new vision with the city. The city's been very supportive of the Franklin Roberts vision. And then I approached Mayor Kelly, who was a BDC tenant himself, a few weeks ago about supporting this move. And we know that it's complicated. We certainly earnestly, 4 of my senior most staff people were available at 8 o'clock this morning and will continue to be to hammer out details. But even before we came in here, it's a conversation that's going on, that's been going on for weeks to some degree, but really for years as we have all explored the best and highest use of that county asset.
So does that mean we did or we didn't ask for help from the state or the city?
You just hung up on renovating the building because we don't even know how much. And
we don't know how much it would cost to renovate the building?
Well, I think you heard here that you're talking about at the minimum, a roof that's in the $1.5 million range, HVAC upgrades that could push $6 or $7 million. And you're left with a facility that is onerously large, that at times of the year has vacancy, that has tenants that are good companies and good people, but they don't fit what you normally are looking for in an incubator. And you don't want every company in your community to be in a public incubator, and you don't want there to be a lottery. You want there to be some rhyme or reason to why you're doing it. There's about 40,000 small businesses in our county, and a little fewer than 40 of them operate in the incubator. 40,000 to 40. It's really important work, but we need to be more strategic about how we approach public incubation so that we can answer to taxpayers about why we do this. Why do you have a public incubator? Most counties don't. A lot of the great counties in America don't. We do. At times it's gone really well. At times I think we may have embellished how well it's going. And now I think we've got a plan that's collaborative and will include many more stakeholders and will be much more inclusive to those who care about that, much more inclusive vision for how we can address the incubation of new companies in our community.
You know, one of the big reasons, and I think this is important for everyone to know, that incubators are so important. And the incubator that we currently have is the 3rd largest in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a report that came out yesterday about job growth in the state of Tennessee. We're flat, 0%. And we have the highest percentage in the entire United States of businesses that fail in the first year. Second only to Washington, D.C. and in the entire country. So I think it's incredibly important that we invest in these incubator programs. We should invest more, not less. That's where I am right now. And if someone can help convince me as to why we should not be investing more in small business incubation for our community, I'm open to listen to it. Thank you, Chairman.
Nope. Okay. 526-11, please.
Resolution 526-11, a resolution to authorize the county mayor to increase the design contract with Tinker Mott LLC for design of the Gateway Career Technical Education Building renovation for an amount not to exceed $2,586,565.44.
Chairman, there's no lights. Do you want to move on?
See, I don't think I have anything else.
Oh, I see a light, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I saw those renderings today at the Gateway Building, and I was very, very impressed with what I saw, and I think that's going to be a great addition to downtown. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Highlander, over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you read 526-12, please?
Resolution 526-12, a resolution authorizing the county mayor to enter into and execute a landscaping maintenance agreement between Hamilton County, City of Chattanooga, and Pipe Properties LLC, allowing Pipe Properties LLC to maintain a designated portion of the Tennessee Riverwalk.
Any lights, Chairman?
No, sir.
We'll bring this up in 3 weeks. 526-13, please, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 526-13, a resolution adopting a fee schedule for the new Hamilton County Planning Department.
Thank you. Any lights?
No, sir.
Quick question. Have we looked at what we're going to suggest for a cost?
Mr. Janeway can come up. I think these reflect current costs that development's paying.
Okay. Briefly, sir. Thank you.
We are just mirroring exactly what RPA charges.
Thank you very much. Any lights? One light.
Sharp.
Mr. Sharp. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
thank you, Chairman. My question is actually back for 526-11.
I'm
Another, I didn't get my light on fast enough.
I'm sorry.
It's
Did I
okay.
proceed too early?
No, I may have been distracted. We
Okay.
were hashing
Okay.
out our communication differences over here, but I
Okay,
think
sorry.
we've done it okay. Yeah, so is this an additional $2.586 million?
Correct. If you remember, we did go through a selection process to select Tinker Mod. Then we did a contract with them for a phase 1 project, which was roughly a $15 million construction project, which was a phase 1, which basically was the first floor and a little bit of the second floor relative to the Gateway project. This increases the contract to do a full build out that includes both the educational portion in the bottom 2 floors, the pathway, and then the incubator space on the 3rd and 4th floor. So it's
Okay.
a full design contract.
Okay, so an additional almost $2.6 million in the new building on top of what we've already spent for the incubator space. Is that right?
So the initial contract was for phase 1 of Gateway. This is now the complete build out of Gateway. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That includes all the components that were presented today.
Okay, and that's bond fund. And that's not the same funding source as the 5.3 for the HVAC at the BDC. Is that accurate?
No, I believe there was 2 million from the state, and then the additional will be out of bond. I think it's 2024 bond.
Okay, so 2 million of this is from the state. And was it earmarked specifically for this building?
The 2 million from the state, I believe was. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Specifically for the
Yes, sir.
Gateway building?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess that was the ask. Did we ask specifically for the 2 million for the Gateway building?
Yeah, Governor Lee put this in his budget, I guess, about a year and a half ago, and it's just for the Gateway Franklin Roberts Center.
Okay, so just for the BDC transition.
No, it's for the
In-
entire project. The
Right,
2
but if
million.
it's for phase two, correct?
Yes,
Because
yes.
phase one's
That's where
already
we'll draw down
done.
those funds are. Yes.
Right. Okay, so we asked the governor for $2 million to design the new incubator space a year and a half ago.
No.
Is that what we're saying?
No. So we pitched the vision of Franklin Roberts, the career and technical aspect to it, to the governor, and he included it in his budget. So we have $2 million sitting there. We haven't drawn down yet from the state to pay for this contract. We'll draw down that along with bond funds. Lee can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we'll also use a combination of bond funds from 2024.
I heard it. Thank you, Chairman.
For the lights.
Any more lights?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Janeway. So the same funding, to reiterate, the same funding that we were going to pay RPA, we'll be using to pay this, right? Thank you very much. As far as we're through, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is
Sorry.
Mackey.
Yeah, I've got one more thing I'd like to go over with you guys. Do you have about 30 minutes?
I'll meet you in the back.
I'm gonna say this, when I'm wrong, okay? He did send me a text today through a different setup than a text message. But I still don't understand you can't spend that kind of money on a building.
Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
You damn.